Little song I wrote called Changes. When the wind is coming from behind, don't turn back. You can't go back. There may be another place, another time, but you can't go back. You can never go back there again. No, but you can roll with the changes. Roll with the changes. Roll with the changes. Those changes are gonna roll right over you. Oh, oh. And when the rain is coming down hard, run like hell, but don't go too far. Rainbows grow in the mist in the sun when the sun comes out, and it always comes out, yeah, after the rain. When you roll with the changes, roll with the changes, roll with the changes, those changes are gonna roll right over you. Oh, oh. Yeah, yeah, roll with the changes, roll with the changes, roll with the changes, those changes are gonna roll right over you. Oh, oh. When the rain is gone and the clouds have moved on, earth is fresh and new, and life will grow from the seeds we sow and the things we do to carry on through. Take a good look, accept and move on. Time doesn't wait for anyone. There's always more coming, so you gotta be strong and roll on. Roll on, you've got to roll with the changes. Roll with the changes. Roll with the changes. Those changes are gonna roll right over you. Ooh, ooh. Over you. Ooh, ooh. Over you. Ooh, ooh. Over you.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Hamilton. My name is Irene Kay, and I'm your morning service leader. I want to thank today's service team, which includes Reverend Jamie Boyce, religious educator Tom Versteeg, music ministers Rachel Derry, Cindy Carey, Mary Ann Forbes, Ian Challenger, and Bruce Jones. Our tech team this morning is Monica Bennett and John Elliott. We are not the first people on this land, nor will we be the last. We acknowledge our connection to the web of all existence, honoring the past and preparing for the future. The stewardship of the original people who lived here and preserved this place for our generation. We seek to be respectful stewards of this place for those who follow. Our goal in this congregation is to extend our hearts in welcome to whomever you may be. We are connected through our desire to live out our ideals of peace, love, and justice for all. We are here to love one another and encourage each other in our spiritual growth. Our congregational mission includes our commitment to nurture one another, serve the community, and inspire action to heal the world. Each time we gather, we light a chalice. It reminds us that we are entering sacred space and time together. It reminds us of our connection to Unitarian Universalists all over the world. As Reverend Jamie lights our chalice, please join in our chalice lighting words. May this flame be our light of friendship and love.
Good morning. Welcome to this time of community, reflection, introspection, and care. Thank you for joining us for a virtual connection. Today, we will celebrate and launch our theme of transitions, which is the theme we will cover throughout the month as we practice and get to know how we might imagine transitions in our lives. Let this time together today be a source of inspiration as we nurture our Unitarian Universalist community. Let us celebrate the mystery of life, the challenges and thrills of change, and the hope of our collective future. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your life journey, you are welcome here. Let us open our hearts and minds as we gather to celebrate this glorious day. I invite you to lift your voice in song at home and join us in our first hymn, Let This Be a House.
Number 1054, Let This Be a House of Peace. Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for question and our inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep inside us. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred differences here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let all in this house seek truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of prophecy. May vision for our children be our common theme. Let this be our house of myth and lore and
February is Black History Month, a time to recognize and celebrate the contributions of Black Canadians to our culture and country, past, present, and future. In 2018, the Bank of Canada took an important step in lifting up and recognizing that rich history when they replaced the picture of an old white man with racist tendencies with that of a Black woman entrepreneur from Nova Scotia. The picture of our first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, had been on the $10 bill since 1971. Prior to that, the only face on our currency, or faces on our currency, were British monarchy. Macdonald's policies of assimilation led directly to the residential school system. This morning, our story for all ages, Viola Desmond Won't Be Budged, tells us about the woman whose picture replaced him. It is written by Julie Nyasha Warner and illustrated by Richard Rudnicki. Viola Desmond was one brave woman. Now come on here, listen in close, and I'll tell you why. It was a day with a zing in the air when Viola set out on her way. She waved to Gladys and Susu, who worked for her at Vi's Studio beauty parlor. Then she stepped into her car and drove away. Viola drove those winter wet roads with care. She had a meeting to attend 3 towns away. But guess what? She never made it there. First, she heard a rattle, then she heard a clunk, and then her car began to shake. Quick, Viola drove into New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, to a garage. The mechanic said it would take some long hours to fix up the car, so Viola made plans to pass the time. She walked up the street and down until she came upon the beautiful Roseland Theater. I'll watch a movie, Viola thought, and she stepped up to the window to buy a ticket for the show. Her ticket in hand, Viola found the perfect seat, right down close where she could see real good. But then she felt a tap on her shoulder. She looked up into the face of the usher. "You have a cheap upstairs ticket," she said. "You have to go to the balcony." "Well," said Viola, "that cashier must have made a mistake. I'll just go on and buy me a main floor ticket then." The usher shook her head. "No, you people have to sit in the upstairs section." Right then, Viola understood crystal clear what she was saying. It was 1946. Back then, the Roseland Theater, like a lot of other places in Canada, was segregated. That meant Black people were not allowed to sit, stand, or even be in the same section as white people. Viola felt sad. Viola felt scared. But most of all, Viola felt mad. "Look," she said, "I'm willing to pay the right price, and this is the seat I want. So I'm not moving." "Well," said the usher, and went to tell the manager. "Well," said the manager, and went to phone the police. And before you know it, all 3 of them came to Viola to insist that she move to the balcony. But I told you Viola was brave, didn't I? She wouldn't budge 1 inch because she knew the seating rule wasn't fair to Black folks. It was just plain wrong. So the manager and the policeman dragged her out of the theater in a really rough way. They took Viola to jail. Can you believe it? She sat on a hard bench all night long and tried to keep her spirits strong. The next morning, Viola was taken before a judge and charged with not paying the proper ticket price. She tried to explain that she was happy to pay more for a downstairs ticket, but they didn't listen to her. Viola was charged a fine of $20, which was a lot of money in those days. Then she was free to go. Viola was glad to get back home to her beauty parlor. When some people came to visit her, she told them what happened to her in New Glasgow. The story made them angry too. So Viola and Black community groups in Nova Scotia decided to appeal her charge. A year later, in 1947, they faced the Nova Scotia Supreme Court, but the judges there sure didn't want to talk about racial segregation. They said Viola's case had been fair, and they canceled her appeal right there. Still, Viola's bravery made a big difference. She inspired all kinds of people to fight against segregation, and by the late 1950s, it was made against the law. So join me in saying thank you to Viola Desmond, a real hero who sat down for her rights. That's the end of our story today.
In these moments of contemplation, I invite you to relax, close your eyes if you like, and breathe deeply. Following our reading, there will be a few moments of silence, followed by music. This morning's reading is God of Life and Beauty, written by Lucinda Duncan. God of life and beauty, we pray for the quietness of snowflakes, knowing that love is quiet. We pray for the kindness of small acts, knowing gentleness is fragile. We are grateful to know that thoughtfulness makes no sound, that compassion leaves wonderfully beautiful traces when we open ourselves to wonder. May ours be a religion which, like the snowflake, goes everywhere in quietness, in love, and with gentle regard for that which is true and beautiful in us and about us.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my fear will burn away. I burn away. I know my soul. I know its wings. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my soul. I know my soul. I know its wings. I know this rose. I know my fear. I know this wings. I know my fear. I know my fear. I know my soul. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
This month, our Sunday services and our chalice groups will explore the theme of transitions. We'll get curious about making transitions intentional in our lives. It's no mistake this theme arrives at the 6-month mark of the journey of interim ministry, with over 1/4 of our time together now past. It's a good time to check in, to reflect backwards and forwards, and of course, right onto this present moment, and notice how we are mindfully journeying with change, to notice the doorbells and doorways of our journey. I wonder if you feel, like I do, that the congregation is perched on a threshold, just on the verge of walking through, of ringing a doorbell, preparing to announce our arrival and taking the first steps into the unknown as the door opens. Perhaps this feeling as we stand there perched at the threshold causes some hesitation. Perhaps it ignites curiosity and excitement. Perhaps you witness it as another ordinary passage from outside to inside, from stranger to family, from certainty to uncertainty. It can be scary, pausing in the midst of change and considering where we are, how we got here, and all the unknown that lies ahead. And yet, it is important to pause with intentionality and notice and engage change with intention, to move through the experience with a sense of wonder, reverence, and appreciation. This week, I have found myself returning to a memory, a ritual of passage that catches me off guard as I remember it. It always surprises me with how impactful and meaningful this memory is, even as it happens with great frequency, and I recreate the gesture over and over again. Like many people, I choose not to wear shoes in the house. When I arrive home, I take off my outside shoes, park them at the door, and then put on my inside shoes, a pair of cozy slippers in the winter, and in the summer, a pair of simple flip-flops. I didn't learn this habit growing up, so it found me later in life in my adult years. I was taught this habit by my former mother-in-law, who was my teacher. My first visit to my in-laws in Izmir, Turkey, gave me the introduction to the importance of this ritual of changing shoes at the door, of entering a home and removing carefully our shores. And then with a performative flair that always tickled me, my mother-in-law would invite me to choose from an assortment of slippers, especially curated for guests. After a bit of awkwardness at that first visit, it was soon discovered that my big American feet required a special pair of manly slippers, which was just fine with me. That wasn't the point, but it was a silly moment in our interaction, a humbling moment, a gentle moment that drew me close into what this experience was about, the experience of hospitality. What I understood clearly, even at that first visit, was that entering her home was special, that taking off shoes and the offering of slippers, which was a ritual of respect and hospitality. When I think of doorbells and doorways, of rituals and liminal spaces, I think of the slippers. I think of the care put into the feet of strangers and the warmth and welcome of that first awkward visit. It is easy to miss the reverence held in the simple and ordinary transitions of our days and even our lives. In our Unitarian Universalist community, I notice many ways we mark the thresholds of our lives together. We have greeters on Sunday morning when we meet in our building, greeters that welcome and affirm us. We start our meetings with a centering and a reading to remind us that the time we spend together is special, it is holy, it is precious, and it is worthy of mindful attention. We pause in a ritual and discipline, a paying attention as we shift our attention onto things that are important to us: relationships, friendship, connection, love, justice, liberation, and freedom for people and the earth. Over the last 6 months of doing interim ministry in a pandemic, I have come to understand that it itself, interim ministry, is a discipline of paying attention and noticing that we are in a special place at a special time. We have before us an opportunity to witness our community in new ways, to celebrate, to hope, and to dream. The transitions team has initiated listening circles, starting with chalice groups as a part of this transitional journey. These circles are doorways into the future. They invite personal, appreciative reflection on the role and importance of the church in folks' lives and in the life of the wider community. Listening circles are important hubs of conversation and connection to our inner worlds that help us understand each other more fully. These listening circles will continue through the spring with the goal of including anyone who wishes to participate and in as many formats as possible. Due to the practical limitations of gathering over Zoom, the process is moving carefully, keeping safety at the center of the process. So for the time being, listening circles are virtual, but when the time is right, we will be moving these to in-person conversations as well. I witness the congregation on the threshold of extraordinary change. The leadership, commitment, and dedication to social justice and advocacy has opened new opportunities for making a significant impact in the city of Hamilton. This is possible because of the sustained care and attention of the congregation and leaders who have dedicated many hours of expertise and love to the core areas of justice ministry. Even now, we are ringing the doorbell to step into growing these ministries to include climate justice as a core focus. Next week, the social justice team invites you to explore this edition in a listening circle after service. I hope you'll join that session in a spirit of openness and curiosity, and bring with you life-affirming questions to grow our ministries and impact. We are also living into a transition with our work around the eighth principle and with the eighth principle. We voted to affirm and promote the individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and systemic barriers to full inclusion in ourselves and our institution. And now we must get to work living that principle, enacting it and embodying it, embracing it in our individual lives and in the life of the congregation. As we celebrate Black history this month, leaning into and learning about the ways in which Black history is collective history, I hope that those of us racialized as white will embrace the invitation to deepen our self-awareness and learning, that we will open ourselves towards new ways of understanding. The Canadian Unitarian Council is offering Widening the Circle of Concern in March, an opportunity to embrace the inner work of anti-racism and anti-oppression, as well as the collective work, the work we do together to transform our human institutions. We are in a time of exciting transition, a time to be courageous and dedicated and to step boldly across the threshold. It seems that we are also at the threshold of course correcting a troubled, hurting democracy here and across the world. Events this week require sustained attention and clear denunciation. Racism, hate, white supremacy are not democratic expressions of the greater good. Unfettered individualism is not aligned with our Unitarian Universalist commitment to the responsible search for truth and meaning, and our commitment to democratic processes and practice. Globally, we are at the doorway to a call to strengthen a collective commitment to a just world that is truly inclusive and caring of people and the earth. I hope like many of us, that we are also in a transitional phase of the pandemic as well. We have been through so much together, and we are continuing to monitor the situation of COVID-19 in our community closely. At the end of February, we will transition back to live streaming from the sanctuary, which we're so excited about, perfecting the craft of multi-platform services. Then, as it becomes safe to do so, the building will open again for Sunday services and programs through the week. I invite you to stay tuned to our all church email and check out the church website for updates. But believe me, as soon as we can open our building, we will. And we will once again make a joyful noise together. Finally, I invite us to pause in the poem that I shared 6 months ago when we started our journey of interim ministry together. It is a poem that invites us into a blessing. And I invite this blessing to remain with us as we continue to move through winter and adventure into the spring. Blessing of the Boats by Lucille Clifton. May the tide that is entering even now, the lip of our understanding, carry you out beyond the face of fear. May you kiss the wind, then turn from it, certain that it will love your back. May you open your eyes to water, water waving forever, and may you, in your innocence, sail through this to that. I invite us to join our voices in song at home and enjoy our final hymn today, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Go, beloveds, into your week, noticing all the thresholds of change before you, paying attention to the details of our lives that mark the transition from one moment to the next. May you step boldly into each moment and bring with you the hope, love, and joy of this community as a blessing to the world. May the journey that remains ahead for this transitional ministry remain alive with the promise of what awaits just on the horizon. Thank you for joining us today.
as I walk this wicked world, there's a true light in the darkness of insanity. I ask myself, is all hope gone? Is there only pain, hatred, and misery? And each time I feel like this inside, there's one thing that I know. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? As I walk on through troubled times, my spirit gets so downhearted. Sometimes, so where are the strong? Who are the trusted? And where is the harmony, sweet harmony? Cause each time I feel it slipping away, just makes me wanna cry. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? We must have peace. And who are the trusted? And where